You're listening to Financial Advisor Marketing, the best show on the planet for financial advisors who want to get more clients without all the stress. You're about to get the real scoop on everything from lead generation to closing the deal. James is the founder of theadvisorcoach.com, where you can find an entire suite of products designed to help financial advisors grow their businesses more rapidly than ever before. Now, here is your host, James Pollard.
Financial advisors, I have another amazing guest this week for you. We're going to have a great episode. We're going to talk about creating better client experiences, and it's something that I think a lot of advisors can benefit from. What's interesting is that when I talk to advisors about this topic, like, hey, serve your clients better, create a better experience, like FedEx efficiency. I think Oxley talks about having FedEx efficiency and Ritz-Carlton service. I definitely approve of that message. When I explain that concept to advisors, they always think that they're doing enough or they're doing well. I don't get that same sense of urgency about improving client experiences that I do with like marketing, where financial advisors know they can do more in marketing, and thus you're listening to the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast. However, I really encourage you to have a sense of urgency about improving your client experience and to listen to the guest I have today, Brandon Chapman, and we are going to dig deep into this topic. Brandon, take the floor from here. And who are you? How can you help? Where'd you come from? How'd you get where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. Love your content. It's a pleasure to be involved in the podcast today. My name is Brandon Chapman. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of AdvisorFlow, which is a client discovery tool for financial advisors. I'm based in Canada, but I always love to come down and visit my friends in the States. How I got here, I basically had a business school. I knew I wanted to build a business, but I didn't have any money to do that. So luckily, the financial services business essentially was a way to build a low-cost business that was focused on helping people and building community, which were two things that I was super focused on in university.
I think a lot of people get hung up on the no money part. It's not necessarily a lack of resourcefulness. So you were resourceful in the fact that you tapped into your network. So that's really cool.
You kind of have to be to build a practice, right? Like you can definitely work for a shop and work your way in, but I think the building from scratch, the benefit of that is you get to choose who you work with and you get to organically grow in that network.
Absolutely. And AdvisorFlow, for those advisors who don't know, it is more or less a process, a system. It's a business, of course, but it's framed around helping advisors with their onboarding processes, which is a very important part of financial services, because you're taking prospective clients to become clients, and the journey that they have there impacts everything that comes after that. What are some of the most common mistakes you see advisors make when onboarding new clients?
Yeah, well, I think the financial services industry historically has been very cookie cutter, very guy in suit, offering the same service no matter what firm you go to. So I'd say the biggest mistake that advisors make is they tend to treat all of their clients the same. Now you, James, you talk a lot about niching, and I don't think enough advisors take that to heart. So like I customize my advisory process depending on whether it's a young professional, a business owner, a family. And the language that I'm using in meetings is different. So the agenda is different. I use a lot of the same technology, but I'm constantly iterating based on feedback that I'm receiving from clients or what I learn from subject matter experts like yourself. Now, bringing that back to the client experience, I think that really needs to be front and center. So every advisor runs a slightly different business, even though we think we do a lot of the same things. So I would encourage every advisor to go through their process step by step, perhaps even have a partner or a close friend go through that process and ask them, how does this make you feel? Was this smooth? Would you have done this if you didn't have a good relationship with me? If someone you love doesn't feel good going through your process, how do you think someone you just met or you were just referred to feels? Why is Disneyland so popular? Because from the moment you walk into the park, you feel magic. Now it's hard to make financial advice feel magical, but you can at least make it feel warm.
There are so many things that Disney does that is just mind-blowing. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's something like you're never more than 3 meters away from a trash can. The cast members aren't allowed to point. They're encouraged to take you to certain places. All of that is by design. It is not accidental. You feel more welcomed or you feel closer when you're walking toward the park than you do walking out of the park, or maybe I have it reversed. But there are so many different touches. I think advisors can learn a lot from studying Disney. I've talked about that a couple of times in like Inner Circle newsletters. The question I have for you though you brought up marketing to a specific group of people, and that's something I certainly espouse. Let's say that you have an advisor who works with, I don't know, we'll say dentist, okay? And they're working with dentists all day long, and they're onboarding new clients, let's just say a couple a month, and they're all dentists. So they repeat themselves, and inside they may feel that they're saying the same things and that they're getting kind of tired of it. What are some ways for financial advisors to really dig in and treat each client as unique, or to find some little things that are different about clients, even when they're working with a specific target market?
Yeah, well, you can look at age, you can look at location, you can look at personality traits. And so I think depending on what questions the advisor is asking in those discovery meetings, that's going to help them segment those particular clients. So like with AdvisorFlow, for example, I'll create different surveys depending on what age a particular client is. A lot of my clients on the advisory side are in tech. So if they're early stage, they're going to be asked very particular questions. If I've known they've raised money, they're going to be asked different questions. And that's going to lead me down a different discovery path, because I already know enough about them that I can show them that I know where they're at in their business and what problems they're going to face over the next few years that another advisor who's just asking them generic questions isn't going to ask.
That is so cool, because you're just getting data that not only helps you, but it helps the client as well. And that can help you build systems. Well, we can probably touch on that later in the episode. Some of the things that I have noticed that advisors do is they're reliant on clunky systems and clunky technology. And what's interesting is that on your website, you have a special Word document to remind you that inefficient processes can take hours, and how client onboarding can be digitized. Can you tell the audience about that Word document and the story behind it?
Yeah, I think the good analogy to this is kind of like Super Mario when he consumes either a star or a mushroom. So you got Mario, and he's already pretty cool. He can throw little fireballs, and he's relatively successful. But if he can consume that star, consume that mushroom, he's going to totally up level his experience, and he's going to be able to supercharge his business. So I hear some advisors say, "Oh, clients they prefer pen and paper; it's more personal," or "Oh, my process is fine; I don't need to change it." And it's like, well, you probably can still close business. I don't think that's the question. It's the question of how do you create a repeatable business that's going to increase the likelihood of success moving forward? How do you add an associate to your process and your business if your process isn't all documented and thought through? Because I find advisors that are experienced are very good at emotional intelligence and responding to body language or language from a client. But replicating that is very difficult if it's not documented and implemented into somewhat of a software system.
And that's absolutely critical for advisors who want to outsource. I've had this conversation maybe 3 times so far this week with people talking about outsourcing everything. And I have it maybe once a week on average, because it's just a popular topic. Yeah. Yes, you want to outsource. Yes, you want to get stuff done. Yes, you want to have systems, but you can't multiply zeros. In the marketing world specifically, there are advisors who believe that on day one, they can go out, hire a marketing firm, agency, coach, consultant, guru, whatever, who can basically create everything for them. And that's more or less a pipe dream. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, I wish it were the case. That'd be kind of cool to just go out and hire someone and say, hey, create this business for me. But it doesn't exist. The best people, or the best time to outsource, is when you do have those systems. You can hire and you can hand off something to another person. And so you're absolutely right. When a financial advisor is bringing on like an associate advisor, for example, or another advisor entirely, it is critical to have the onboarding process down to a science, literally, so you can just give it to the other person. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think that it's often overlooked. Like a lot of advisors focus on rates of return, they focus on the financial plan, but the onboarding experience, really those first few steps and first few touch points, that's what's likely going to cement that relationship. All the numbers and everything else that you bring to the table afterwards, that's what they'll end up talking about afterwards. But for a client to actually trust you, believe in you, know that you're the right person, those first few touch points, whether it be the meetings, the emails, the information they have to fill out to you, whatever that process feels like, that's their first impression.
And people don't realize that can be part of a system. They say, oh, well, I don't want to sound robotic, or I don't want to come across as robotic. You don't have to. I don't want you to. I don't want you to come across as robotic at all. But I want you to have guardrails in place. I want you to have buffers in place that guide whoever it is down the pipeline process, whatever you want to call it, both your client and whoever it is that's implementing this, whether it's an associate advisor or another advisor entirely, as I said. And I'm glad you brought up Mario. And I love that analogy. I don't think I've ever heard that before, where they can become Super Mario and they can up level in their business. And another way that I think advisors can do that is by strengthening their value proposition. And just so advisors who are listening know, a unique value proposition needs to be unique and it needs to be valuable. The secret is in the name. But one thing that a lot of advisors don't consider is that a streamlined onboarding process can be part of your value proposition. Then, Brandon, you're the guy to ask about this. How can advisors make that part of their proposition?
The reason I had the Word doc on the site is I used to use a Word document to gather information. I'd send it to clients, hope they filled it out, here's some feedback about how they didn't like it, and then I'd carry on. But luckily, I had friends in the software industry who were able to build out a digital version of the platform where data would flow from the first point of contact to the financial planning process, and then ultimately to opening up accounts and adding the client to the book. So I think every advisor should be considering, if they haven't, what technologies can automate certain aspects of the business, but also what allows their brand to shine through and allow them to continue to be them. Because it's not just about choosing a software system like a Google Forms or whatever. It's about choosing software that's going to grow with your business and that's focused on you as an advisor. And that's where I think some advisors kind of get mixed up, is they think, well, yeah, I have software, it gets the job done. But if it takes away your personality and doesn't allow your brand to shine through, I think that's also a mistake.
What's interesting, though, is the advisors who automate more actually, in my experience, have their personality shine through even more. It's one of those things where what you fear comes to pass. And what I mean by that is advisors who are afraid of sounding too robotic, they end up working and shoving their calendar full of tasks, and they're so burnt out and so stressed out and doing everything manually that they just do the bare minimum, and their mind defaults to just saying whatever, whenever. They don't put any thought into it. They just try to get tasks done. Compare that to someone who is using software, email marketing, for example. They could use an autoresponder sequence and just be done with it. They would then free up their time to be really intentionally think about what they want their business to look like, how they can show appreciation for their clients, how they can let their personality come through, any client events. It just opens up a whole new world. So there's so many benefits that I see benefits from automation throughout the entire business itself, not just onboarding. But I'm glad that you specialize in onboarding and helping advisors with this.
Yeah, and really a lot of the content that you talk about, when you're posting content and you go viral, it's not because you put something into an app and it just spits something out. It's something about your personality that's going on in your life that you think is relevant to advisors. And so I think the personality touch with the technology mesh, that's really where the skill can come in. You look at ChatGPT, and I actually have my marketing team running some of our copy through that to enhance it a bit before it goes out. We're still doing all the same stuff, but we're leveraging technology to augment the experience and ultimately make it easier and better.
Let's talk about that. I know this isn't going to fit in the show title about onboarding and client processes. How specifically are you using ChatGPT in addition to that, or are you?
So it's still very early, but we've essentially come up with topics that are relevant to clientele. This is specifically on the advisory side, not on the software side for advisors.
Sure. And
previously, I'd have my team research the topics, come up with basic templates of what we would talk about. I would edit it, make it me, and then we would record and push that content out, either through blog format, video format, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Now what we're doing is, instead of them doing that research, they're asking ChatGPT to get the baseline research done instead of going out in Google and finding it, because it's actually way better worded through ChatGPT. Then I'll edit it. And so it's essentially cutting down some of the time of our process previously, but ultimately it's still the same. It's still my opinion about how a TFSA works, or the equivalent of like an IRA in the States. We're still doing the same stuff, but now we're just trying to use some AI in the process, because ultimately, people want to hear from humans. They don't want to hear from robots. So why are they going to watch someone on Instagram or TikTok instead of Google? It's more entertaining to hear somebody that they know, like, trust. And that's, I think, the opportunity for all advisors is get your brand out there and make sure your personality is obvious. if you were to outsource everything, a marketing person to write your copy, send it out, do it, it's not going to be you anymore. And therefore, you're going to probably not get the same results than if you had the advisor's face, the advisor's words, the advisor's perspective.
So just to be clear, when you get the stuff from the AI, you're not copying and pasting the text and just putting it on your website. You're using it for an outline and then putting your own spin on it.
Correct.
I love that. And that's the way you should use it, because it's actually against Google's guidelines to copy and paste the text. People will come back to that and say, oh, well, this tool says that it can't detect if it's generated by AI. This tool says this. Well, you're not incorrect. But I think in terms of asymmetric reward and risk, and I think that the downside to you getting slapped with a penalty is not worth the upside of getting some extra traffic and saving maybe an hour or two every article. Every advisor has to determine if it's worth the risk. I think just because you get a good outcome from a bad decision doesn't mean it is a good decision. It just means exactly what I said. You got a good outcome from a bad decision. If you run a bunch of red lights and stop signs on your way to work and you get to work 10 minutes earlier, does that mean that you made a good decision? No. It means that you have skirted the asymmetric downside. I think I really want advisors to take heart, because I put something out about AI not too long ago, and I would say about half of the feedback I received was about writing in some way, shape, or form, like blog content. And advisors would say, this is going to save me so much time because I can take this text and put it on my site. And I was like, oh no, I should have said something. And I'm glad that you're using it correctly. That is the way that I would personally recommend, is to ask it for ideas, get some outlines, and then expand on the outlines. And you are doing it right.
Yeah, I think that's how we should look at all technology. Is if a technology says it's going to do everything in your business, it probably isn't the right technology. Like the technologies that I see being successful are very advisor focused. It is a platform in Canada called AdvisorStream, which basically scours the internet for all these different marketing articles, and then you can publish them. But it's almost too automated. I use it more as like a filler, and then I actually post creative content. And now I see most advisors use it. I started using that platform in 2018 before most advisors used it. And now I'm looking at other things, because I don't want my content to be the same thing that I see other advisors posting. I want my stuff to be unique and be more about me. And engagement back in 2018 for that content was way higher than it is now. So it just goes to show you that like the flavor of the week and sort of what everyone else is using probably isn't the right thing. You need something that's a bit different, a bit more unique, a bit more relevant for today.
Well, I'll give financial advisors a little tip. If they're interested in doing something with AI and some sort of content aggregator, there used to be a service, I don't even remember the name. It'll probably come to me as soon as we stop recording. That was an aggregator that basically you would type in a keyword like Coca-Cola, and it would give you the most popular articles about Coca-Cola. I know BuzzSumo used to do it, but that's not the one that I'm thinking of. BuzzSumo used to have like a popularity ranker or something like that. What you could actually do now is take the most common article and the title of it and put it into ChatGPT and say, give me titles like this. So you're having a proof of concept that you can expand on, that you can throw your 2 cents in, but you're not copying. Never ever copy and just copy paste and just share the content. Like it's kind of lame and it's lazy, but you also don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of advisors say, oh, well, I'm not creative. You don't have to be creative. You have to ask an AI tool now in 2023, hey, give me 10 examples of hooks similar to this. And you just give it the proof of concept and then you run with that.
Love it. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's trial and error too, right? Like advisors can try some of this stuff. If it doesn't work, then don't keep doing it. This new tech can be great, but nothing is a silver bullet to just being a good advisor, taking care of your clients, and asking for referrals if you've done a good job.
Yeah, you really get back to the basics. One of the ways that I've been using AI that has been kind of cool is I originally started using DALL-E, and that's DALL-E, and it's basically an image generator. You put in whatever keywords you want, and I put in like robot shaking hands with advisor, and the images were okay. And I ran some ads with those images and they did well. Then I used a service called Midjourney. So MID Journey. So all one word, Midjourney. And that thing is incredible. And let me tell you, I'm going to give these people a business idea. If I had an Instagram account, I would do like photos from Midjourney all day, every day. I would have like a car account, or let's just say a Tesla account, with niching down even more. And I would say like red Tesla in the desert, 8K photorealistic, or like red Tesla Model S in the snow, 8K photorealistic. And I would put it on Instagram, and I would start networking with people in the Tesla space and grow that account. And then I would have like partnerships with car places. I would have affiliate relationship. There's a lot of stuff I would do that. But anyway, back to my original point, Brandon. You got me off track. You shouldn't have done that.
I love the way you think.
I use Midjourney to generate images for online ads. And those online ads have been crushing it. It has been insane what these images, it's so much better. I know, because one of the things that I struggle with, and advisors also struggle with, is human faces tend to do really well in ads. There's only so much I can do by taking pictures of myself, like outside, inside, by this screen, with this thing. It's just taking pictures of myself like I'm not an Instagram model. But with Midjourney, I've cracked the code, because I can say young financial advisor doing whatever the ad is about. So if the ad is about watching a webinar, I can type in young financial advisor. And the reason I say young is because I'll do age targeting. So it's like 25 to 34, like young financial advisor watching something on the computer. And that just destroys it compared to some other images I've run. What do you think about that?
I'm writing some notes. This is some good stuff, as always, James. Yeah, like the fact that we have these tools at our fingertips now, I think advisors that utilize them and understand the rules around using them are going to crush, especially if you get someone like yourself who's giving some coaching and advice along the way. Because the way you think, and compared to most advisors, like, you are a marketer through and through. It's pretty fucking clear.
Thank you. I can't wait to see what the future holds for AI. And we'll get back to systems right after this. I promise financial advisors who are listening, unless you like the AI stuff, send me an email if you do, and maybe I'll do an episode about AI in the future. But it's going to change everything for financial advisors who are running online ads, especially the ones who either have multiple niches, or who have, like some of my most successful advisors that I work with are advisors who have different associate advisors and paraplanners who work with different niches within the business, if that makes sense. So they have like XYZ wealth management, and then one silo of the business works with firefighters, one silo works with police officers. You can generate images of firefighters and police officers and whoever you want from Midjourney in minutes. And then you can immediately take them and put them on Facebook. And then when you realize that like the 80-20 rule applies, and one image out of 5 is going to generate 80% of your results, statistically speaking, and you can get a massive amount of data in a short period of time, it's almost, you would have to be foolish to screw it up. You would have to try to not get results with it, especially when you start targeting just the way that I think you should, which is very detailed. And advisors, here's a funny story also. I know I'm rambling. An advisor had trouble with his Facebook ads because he was marketing to police officers. He was targeting the police, which is like the music, the band, the rock band, the police. So he was showing his ad to people who were fans of the police, not police officers. So no wonder his ads weren't getting results.
Hey, financial advisors. If you'd like even more help building your business, I invite you to subscribe to James's monthly paper and ink newsletter, The James Pollard Inner Circle. When you join today, you'll get more than $1,000 worth of bonuses, including exclusive interviews that aren't available anywhere else. Head on over to theadvisorcoach.com/coaching to learn more.
Back to the systems thing though. You seem very systems minded. That's one of the things that I appreciate about you and what you do for advisors and clients and all sorts of people. From you, I want to know, what are some tips financial advisors can use to build better systems?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice I would have is for advisors to look at other industries that have been innovating longer. So we talked about Disney earlier. You've got, I would say, Disney for magic. You've got Google for search, Amazon for purchasing online. Go through the buying process for those other industries and write down notes about what you like and don't like about the experience. For AdvisorFlow, I looked at a platform called Jane, which does what we do for physiotherapists. I spoke with one of the founders. you're not always going to find the best information or inspiration from the industry in which you're focused on. So sometimes you can look at other advisors and mimic what they're doing, but I find the best advisors that are doing things unique likely got those ideas from outside the financial advice space. So if you work with doctors, maybe you say that you treat in financial uncertainty versus saying that you help with their financial security. So just trying to tie your own systems and processes to your industry, but getting that information from likely outside the industry.
I think that is absolute gold. And that's something I've been thinking about recently. So I think this is a sign that I need to take action on something. Advisors were asking about this, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, like how to improve their call process. Like if somebody calls their office, what do they say? What do they do? And they want a script. And I always get frustrated with people like that. And I really should work on it. I don't like that mentality of like, just give me a step-by-step, give me a script. But I started thinking about it because I try to genuinely help. And I think, well, what would I do? I would call services that use like Call Ruby, which is a phone answering service, or like Smith.ai is another call answering service. And these are businesses that are incentivized to make sure calls get answered pleasantly, quickly, and in a great fashion. And to basically get information, say, how can we help you? And so on and so forth. I would take notes. How quickly did the phone call get answered? Was it on the first ring, second ring, third ring? What did the person say immediately after answering the phone? What happened when I ask a question? How do they redirect if there's something that they don't know? How quickly do they promise a call back? I would try to pay attention to all of these things. And so you're saying something very similar, and I think that's awesome. Financial advisors could benefit a lot from that. And when you were doing your research for AdvisorFlow, you did something similar with like the physiotherapist company. That is brilliant. And more advisors, you need to realize, advisors, there are companies out there that I don't know Call Ruby's financials, but I'm sure it's a multi-million-dollar company at least. So they have tons of clients paying a lot of money to make sure that their phone calls get answered and get answered correctly. So in a capitalistic society, they have a profit motive to ensure that they're delivering a superior service. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just think, well, who's doing it? How can I model that? And I love that you did that. What are some mistakes you see financial advisors make when building systems?
Trusting that what's worked before is going to continue working in the future. We talked a lot about AI improving every day. Financial advice delivery needs to keep pace. So I think that not leveraging the technologies that are available today and then continuing to stay on top of what's coming. So like Michael Kitchis does a good job in the US. In Canada, we've got the Advocates Digital Catalog. Advisors think that this is time wasted, or it's going to take too much time to learn, especially those that are perhaps in their 50s and have already got a successful business. They just think, okay, this isn't worth my time because my time is worth $500 an hour if I'm with clients. Why would I bother to learn new software? And I think the question, the reframing that is really, if you can integrate some of this technology, it's actually going to save them $500 an hour for multiple hours in perpetuity while they're still in the business, if they spend the time now. So those are probably the two biggest ones.
That would require an investment, though. Isn't it weird that the industry that talks about, oh, you should invest often and invest early, has some of the people who are so adamant about investing in themselves and their businesses?
Yeah, advisors are cheap for sure.
If I had known that, it would have influenced my thinking about serving advisors. Well, what's interesting is that there's a pocket of advisors who are just superstars, amazing. Like these people are just wonderful in every aspect. You just have to wade through everybody else to get to these people. And if that's offensive, I'm sorry. If you're offended by that, you're probably not in the pocket of people that I'm talking about. But it is true. It is absolutely true. I see that with like hiring people. You say, oh, well, it would take me 3 hours to explain this process to someone else, and it would only take me 30 minutes to do it. It's like, okay. And how often does that task come up? Oh, well, it comes up about 10 times a month. Well, wait a minute. That means that your break even is in less than a month. Why not just teach somebody? Show someone. But that would require investing. And you're right. They do think, oh, I make X dollars per hour. They say, like, I want to spend more time on income producing activity. I think eventually it will be income producing activity. Can you imagine if their clients came to them and they invest in like the S&P 500 and in 2022, it was down 19%. And they came back and they say, I'm firing you because I want my investments in appreciating activities. The financial advisor will say, well, you have to wait. But yet they're not, some advisors aren't willing to wait when it comes to software. It's goofy.
For sure. And I think a lot of it's fear-based. Like advisors are scared that the platforms are out to get them, or that their jobs will be replaced. And so it's easier to just put the blinders on and not think about it. But at the pace of innovation, it's required. And it's just giving younger advisors like me more of an opportunity to take market share. So for all the more experienced advisors out there, this is your call to action. Because if you don't, I'm going to transfer your clients' assets.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you are an advisor. So what are some things you wish you knew when you were starting your career as an advisor?
Yeah, I got into the business because I wanted to start a business, and I didn't have a lot of cash to do so. But the things that I wish I had out of the gate was a mentor who had a lot of experience in the business. I've found these mentors over time, but if you can find somebody who's already been successful and already knows what they're doing, that's huge. As well, integrating ongoing learning into my schedule early on. So I started working on the CFP, I think in year 2 or 3, largely because another advisor asked me, hey, do you want to do this? And we did it together. But I've still retained time in my schedule to continue to learn, whether it's designations or books associated with the business. So for anyone who's kind of just getting started, that's super important. And then having an accountability buddy to keep you accountable, not just to your business goals, but also to your educational goals. Because I find some advisors, once they get like one designation, they think they're good and they just sort of focus on making money and they don't stop learning. But you kind of need to be polished to move up market. And that's not going to happen if you're not continually learning.
Those are great pieces of advice. I think the one thing I would add for the mentor thing as kind of a warning is sometimes people think I'm anti-mentor. I'm not necessarily anti-mentor. I'm anti-mentor from mentors who aren't aligned with your goals and your perspectives. And financial advisors, when they give me a chance to explain this, they realize that we're all on the same page, because if financial advisors want to work with clients to accomplish their goals and give them what they need. And I feel the same way about mentorship. I would stress that it's important for advisors to find a mentor with a similar personality, because it's very hard. And the example I always go back to is like an extrovert trying to mentor an introvert. It almost never ends well, because the extrovert's pushing the introvert to do things that just aren't natural. And trying to work on weaknesses is almost never as good as working on strengths. So I do think finding a mentor, just to be clear, it is a great idea. I would just find somebody with a similar personality.
Yeah, super. That's very true, especially because most advisors that were successful in this business are typically like salespeople. And not everyone who is entering financial services now is a salesperson. And you don't necessarily need to be a salesperson to be as successful today. If you run good marketing and have a good process, you can be an introvert and still run a wildly successful business.
Absolutely. What I've noticed is, so the middle, like the median, the successful advisors who are like median to like above average, I should say, they tend to be extroverts. And everyone who, like the barbell, like the people who are super, super successful and the people who just flop and fail, those tend to be introverts. And sometimes advisors will hear that and think, oh, well, that's pretty discouraging if they're introverts or extroverts, I guess, because I'm saying that it's not a good outcome for either or. But the introverts are the ones who figure out how to build the systems, how to streamline, how to automate, how to delegate. And those are things that get you to the upper, like the zenith of personal wealth and income in business. So that's one of my observations. And I don't want to journal too much about that. We'll save that for another episode in the future. One selfish question I have for you. This is more for me than for the listeners. What are some of the best books you've ever read?
They're right behind me on the bookshelf. I'd probably go with Relentless by Tim Grover. This book, it's kind of firmly focused on business and relationships. Now, I'm not a professional athlete, but there's a lot of stories of professional athletes within the book. And it really just talks about if you're focused on the long-term in business and relationships, you will likely be successful if you continue to kind of work hard and stay at it. Most people lose because they quit. They don't lose because they lost in the short term. But a lot of people just give up because they can't handle rejection, or they can't handle the loss and learn from the loss. Simon Sinek, I'm sure you've heard of. He's great. Leaders Eat Last. When I think of my business, it's about taking care of my staff, taking care of my clients. They take care of my business. They take care of me. The best investments that I've made in life have been in people, and those have paid dividends for far greater than I could have ever expected, even compared to, say, throwing into an index fund for a number of years. Yeah, if I was going to say the third, probably impossible to inevitable. I actually read this on my trip to South America. This is written by Aaron Ross, Jason Lemkin. This book talks a lot about the fact that ones that believe something can be achieved are the ones that usually do. And we talked a lot about systems today, and they talk a lot about systems within this book as well. And if you build the right systems and stay focused, then you can really build long-term success. So those will probably be my top books at the moment.
It's very rare that I get a book recommendation I have not read that or at least like a common one. Yeah, I have not read From Impossible to Inevitable. I'm adding that to my wish list right now. And you bring up a good point. People don't believe they can achieve something. It's almost a given that they're not going to. I would actually make the argument, and this is kind of metaphysical, but it's helped me a lot. If whatever comes to your mind when you're setting goals, it came to your mind for a reason. And if I put an advisor on the spot, or anyone really, and I say, set an income goal for the next 365 days. And the person's like, okay, $300,000 in net income. Okay. How come you didn't say 301 or 350 or 400 or $1 million or $1.5 million? It's because whether you know it or not, you already believe that you can accomplish that goal. You just need to harness that unconscious belief. The reason you didn't say a higher number is because you don't believe that. So you will only set goals to the threshold of your belief. Now, once people know that, then they get silly with it and they say, okay, well, $1 billion in a year. No, you can't do that. It has to be whatever you genuinely feel, whatever you genuinely believe. This is not something that you can game. This is not something that you can trick. You have to just internalize this concept and really believe, hey, this is what I want. This is what I feel as if I can accomplish. And it applies to like relationships and weight loss and money, and even super successful people are subject to this. There are people that make $10 million per year. These are celebrities, actors, A-listers, so on and so forth, that if you ask them, what would you like to accomplish in the next 365 days? They're going to give you something. They're going to give you something that has a threshold. By math, this is how math works. When someone gives you a number, there's going to be a number that's higher. No one's going to say, I want to make infinity dollars. If someone gives you a number, it's the threshold. It's the max of their belief. You just have to learn how to harness that. I don't know if that's helpful to people. Do you think that'd be helpful to the listeners?
100%. I think people sell themselves short because they're looking at their past results and then just adding a percentage increase, as opposed to looking at the market in which they're serving. What's the potential revenue per client? What happens if they invest a certain amount of money into marketing in that niche in the right way? I think people are think about things the wrong way. So they're like, oh, I earned that much last year, add 10 or 20%. That's what I would make this year.
And so for financial advisors specifically, their profit margin, generally speaking, not always, I'm sure there are exceptions, tends to be significantly higher than other industries. One of the examples I gave advisors was Nike. So Nike the average price of Nike is about $110 per pair of shoes. And the average profit margin, based on when I just Googled it and researched it, is like 11%. So let's make this really easy and say they make $11 profit per shoe or per pair of shoes that they sell you. This means they can invest up to $11 in their marketing to get you to buy a pair of shoes. They're a $1 billion company. People need to understand that. And it's $11 in profit. And they're spending billions over years to get people to become customers. Financial advisors, if they make even, let's just say $3,500 in revenue, and let's take that down to $2,500 in profit because it takes time for them to create it and they're paying themselves, or at least they should be. $2,500 versus 11, that's astronomical. That financial advisors have that type of margin, and Nike would do whatever it took to get that margin to that level. They would love to have that. Microsoft would love to have that. Apple would love to have that. And financial advisors have that opportunity, and they don't take advantage of it because they don't realize how much of a gift that is, and how much they can amplify it with good marketing and good systems like you're talking about.
Yeah, Inner Circle newsletter, big proponent. I think advisors, if you're not signed up, James is the man. So $1,200 a year, I think it's a bit of a steal considering the return on investment.
And I really I guess I should raise the prices. I don't know. I have the $99 per month in a lot of different places and a lot of automations, and it would kind of be a pain in the butt to change it. But yeah, you're totally right. I mean, if you make $120,000 per year, the newsletter needs to increase your income 1%. And when I say it like that, it sounds kind of silly. At least for me, it does. 1%? Are you serious? Like, I wouldn't have a business if I couldn't do it. But yet advisors get so squeamish and so skeptical. And I've seen it all. I've seen advisors say everything they possibly could to avoid investing in themselves. And not just with me. I encourage advisors to buy a whole bunch of stuff. You get everything by people like Nick Murray. Buy everything. And I mean everything. And just invest in yourself. I think another thing, people don't realize you need to be in complete psychological alignment to truly unlock your power. And what I mean by that is when you don't invest in yourself, you are sending a psychological signal to your entire being that says you're not worthy of being invested in. When you do invest in yourself, you're sending the opposite signal. And this is not just me. I'm telling you, invest in other things and get other training, get other help. I want you to get everything, not necessarily to benefit me or whoever it is that is receiving the money, but because it benefits you. My life is not going to change if I get another $99. It's not. Like, the quality of my life will not change, period. I'll sleep in the same bed, drive the same car, eat the same food, have the same electric bill, but everything could change for you. And I really do mean that. And I thank you for bringing that up. That's awesome. Very kind of you.
It's a fact. You're the man, James. So you're the best marketer I found online. And I've scoured the internet. So when it comes to financial advisor marketing.
Thank you. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you, how you can help them? Maybe they want to be a client of yours. Maybe they want to learn about AdvisorFlow.
LinkedIn. That's the spot. That's where we all share what's on our mind. So happy to chat with any advisors or prospective clients about what's going on. But at the end of the day, I'm just super excited for our industry. I think that all this innovation that's coming to the forefront is going to just allow advisors to run better businesses, have more flexibility, be able to travel the world with their loved ones, and still run really great businesses. So it's a very exciting time for our industry.
The future is incredibly bright. People, you heard the man. His name is going to be in the show title and in the show description, or at least it should be in the show description, definitely in the show title. You can type it directly into LinkedIn, find him, get in touch with him, ask him questions. And financial advisors, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It has definitely been a unique one. We've talked about systems, we've talked about discovery, we talked about AI, we've talked about the future of the industry. I don't want you to get left behind. So take this to heart, and I will catch you next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.